Namo Buddhaya. If you were to choose one book for the rest of your life and to keep it with you and carry around wherever you go, what book would you choose? Well, for me, it is this book. This book has literally changed my life in many ways. And whenever I feel down, whenever I feel stressed, I take out this book and read 2 or 3 pages and I find the answer for my problem. Well, if you ask, and this book is very famous that it is considered the handbook of Buddhists, right? Now, if you ask, what is the religious book of Christians? You can clearly say it is the Bible. What is the religious book of Muslims? You can clearly say it is Al-Quran. What is the religious book of Judaism? You can say it is Torah. What is the religious book of Hinduism? It is the Bhagavad Gita. Well, if you ask from a Buddhist, what is your religious book? Then they will say, oh, we don't have one book. We have an array of books. There are a lot of books when it comes to religious scriptures in Buddhism. But out of all these religious scriptures books, right, in Buddhism, this book is considered the handbook of all the Buddhists. So this book is none other than the Dhammapada itself, right? So Dhammapada has literally changed my life in many ways. So what is Dhammapada? Dhammapada is a set of verses that was preached by the Buddha himself. Now there are 423 verses in this collection, and it is divided into 26 chapters, each explaining different kind of topics like happiness, like violence, or loving kindness, or about the wise man, about the foolish, or about the Buddha, right? So it contains a lot of verses which explains about the life as well, right? And I would recommend that whenever you feel down, whenever you feel stressed, if you have this Dhammapada book with you, you can take it out and read 2 or 3 pages, and I'm pretty sure that you will find the answer for your problem, right? I have heard from a lot of my Hindu friends that they're using the Bhagavad Gita whenever they feel down, then whenever they feel stressed, they take this Bhagavad Gita and they read 2 or 3 pages and they find the answer for their problem. Well, for the Buddhists, in the Buddhist practice, I would highly recommend Dhammapada book to use as the handbook of every person. Dhammapada has a lot of advices and life lessons that they are wonderful. So let's take some time to read 2 or 3 verses and see how wonderful they are. In Dhammapada verse number 103, the Buddha says, though one may conquer 1,000 times 1,000 men in battle, yet he indeed is the noblest victor who conquers himself. So the Buddha says, no matter how much you conquer, no matter how much you battle in the battleground, the most difficult war is to conquer yourself, to win yourself. See how wonderful it is. In the next verse, the Buddha says, self-conquest is far better than the conquest of others. Not even a god, an angel, Mara or Brahma can turn into defeat the victory of such a person who is self-subdued and ever restrained in conduct. So the Dhammapada contains such kind of verses which gives you the inspiration or the motivation, the strength to build up yourself, to focus more into yourself. And also in Dhammapada verse 166, the Buddha says, let one not neglect one's own welfare for the sake of another, however great. Clearly understand one's own welfare, let one be intent upon the good. So the Buddha says, no matter what happened, first of all, you have to focus on yourself, your own welfare. If you made your own welfare, if you protect yourself, then only you can protect others and help others in the correct way, right? So it helps you to be more self-conscious, more self-focused, and to build up yourself. In verse number 290, the Buddha says, if by renouncing a lesser happiness, one may realize a greater happiness, let the wise man renounce the lesser, having regard for the greater. Now, I find this verse is so important and so inspiring, right? Because for me especially, when I'm living as a monk, sometimes I have found a little bit stressed out, like times where I feel down and stressed out. Right? Then I always think, okay, you're intending a greater happiness. You're going to achieve a greater happiness. Then you must be willing to let go of that lesser happinesses, cheaper happinesses, if you are focused on a greater happiness, right? In the same way, for the normal life, it's the same way, right? If someone is working towards a greater happiness or a greater goal in his life, then he or she has to let go of that cheaper happinesses, that daily cheaper happinesses that keeps that person away from achieving that greater happiness, right? So Dhammapada contains such valuable and inspiring life lessons, advices. So I invite all of you to take this book, buy this book, or maybe find this book and read it, right? So I will link down below all the links that you need to read this book. You may find some PDFs. You may find some online links that I will provide some online links that you can read. And also, if you are willing to buy the book, right, buy the hard book, I will link down some links for that you can buy the book online, right? So when it comes to Dhammapada, there are lots of translations. But the translations that I would recommend is, the first translation is by Venerable Acharya Buddha Rakkhita, right? This translation is very good and very precise. It contains very high level of English, but it is very precise, right? And also, there's another translation that I would highly recommend. That is the translation from my teacher, Venerable Kiribati Goda Jnanananda Thero. In this book, you may find all the verses in the most simplest and easy to understand form, right? So if you can buy this book, and these are the two translations that I would recommend for all of you. So I invite all of you to buy or read it online or find PDFs and read these books, read this Dhammapada book, and then you will find a lot of valuable life lessons. So that is all for today. I wish you all, may you be healthy and may you live in peace. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya. It is quite easy to be patient and to be calm when the life goes smoothly. But where our real patience comes into test is in the middle of adversity. I know it is very difficult to practice patience for all of us. It is easier to say to be patient. It is easier to advise to be patient, but it is easy to talk about patience, but to practice this quality, it is really, really challenges for every one of us. So although it is difficult, although it is challenging, we have to practice this amazing quality that brings the happiness and the calmness and peace to our life. So let's talk about how to practice patience according to Buddha's teachings. So in Buddhism, patience is considered as the greatest virtue. In Dhammapada, verse number 184, the Buddha says, patience is the highest virtue. The Buddhas say that Nibbana is supreme. And the one who harms others is not a monk. And one who destroys others is not a monk. So in Buddhism, a bigger space and a bigger value is given to the patience and to practice the patience as the practice of patience as an inner quality. Not just to talk about it, not just to read about it or to learn about it, but the real practice. So in Buddhism, the greatest quality in Buddhism, the greatest virtue is considered as the patience also. So what exactly is patience? The Buddha describes this as follows. And what's the patience practice? It is when a bhikkhu endures cold, heat, hunger, and thirst. They endure the touch of flies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and reptiles. They endure rude and unwelcome criticism, and they put up with physical pain, sharp, severe, acute, and unpleasant, disagreeable, and life-threatening. This is called the patience practice. In another sutta, the Buddha explains about the patience as follows. What is the patient practice? It is when someone abuses, annoys, or argues with you, and you don't abuse, annoy, or argue back at them. This is called the patience practice. So, being able to put up with ups and downs and challenging situations and disagreeable experiences in life is called patience. But to be honest, it is really difficult to be patient. Yes, it is difficult. It is going to be difficult, and it will be always difficult. It will never be easy, because that's the nature of all good practices in life. The Buddha said, what brings the happiness to your life? To practice such qualities is the most difficult thing that you have to do in your life. But although it is difficult, we all have to practice this amazing quality of being patient. Now, in Buddhism, being silent, tolerating, and enduring everything out of fear does not mean the real patience. In Buddhism, the real patience comes with a deeper meaning of life. When someone has a deeper meaning of his life, and when someone has knows the true nature of life, then it's very easy for that person to be patient and to practice the amazing quality of patience. Normally, when we tolerate and when we become silent, the reason why we become silent is because of the fear. Sometimes we have no choice to do anything, right? In that case, we become silent. But the Buddha says that that is not the true patience. Someone can see such kind of a person and say, oh, he is patient. But that's not the true patience, because that person doesn't have the power. That person doesn't have the authority to do something, right? So being patient out of fear is not the true patience. The Buddha says about the real patience like this. In Vepachiti Sutta, it is mentioned, when a person endowed with strength patiently endures a weakling, they call that the supreme patience. The weakling must be patient always. So the real patience comes when you understand that there is the beast inside you. What is that beast? The anger. And if you're afraid of that anger, and if you're afraid of that beast to control your life, and if you can be patient in that situation by controlling your emotions and controlling your thoughts and controlling your anger and deciding to not to harm that person, that is called the true patience and the real patience. To practice such kind of a patience, you have to do a great dedication. Sometimes you have to go through a lot of hardships. You have to endure a lot. But still, why you become patient? Because you believe that being patient is the greatest virtue that you can practice in life. And you believe that you are much more better than them, and you have a better qualities than them. If you believe in that, you can truly be patient. To practice patience, the Buddha offers us a path of thinking in a more deeper level of understanding through our life. So suppose a person comes to you and treat you with rude words, right? Or treat you with their meanness. How can you avoid that situation without even worrying? How to do that? So the Buddha teaches us to look at this situation through the 3 marks of existence. So what are 3 marks of existence? So the Buddha says the 3 marks of existence are anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So anicca. Anicca is the understanding about the impermanence. So the Buddha said that everything in life is subjected to change. If you look at our life, there is nothing that we can hold on to and think and find that is not subjected to change. So once you understanding this intrinsic nature or the inherent nature of impermanence, it's very easy to let go of that anger and to be patient. Because let's say someone blamed you or someone treated you with rude words, okay? Right at the moment that you heard that voice, those words, they became impermanent, right? But here's the problem. why does we hear the same thing again and again, what they said in our mind, and we keep creating that chain of thought, and we keep creating that anger in our mind? Because the mind has the nature to recreate everything that we heard or what we experienced. Okay, so we think that they abused me, they hurt me, and they treated me with these rude words, so I should not be treated like this. But in reality, those words had been impermanent now. They have been vanished. For an example, the words that you heard from me before, now everything has been vanished. They don't exist. That's the reality of life. But once you're understanding this true and intrinsic nature of impermanence, it's very easy to let go of the anger because you don't find anything to hold on to now. What is the word that we have to hold on to now in this moment to be angry? No, it has gone. So once you understand this true nature of impermanence, it's very easy to practice patience. And the second thing that we have to understand is dukkha. Dukkha often refers to as suffering. So the Buddha said that the pain and suffering is a part of our life. So you cannot remove that. We have to face that situation, okay? Because that is the nature of living. The nature of life is, it is always connected or characterized by the pain or suffering. This is not to worry about the pain or the suffering, but to see it as a part of life and accept it, learn to be with it, learn to deal with it. That is how we can understand the suffering. And the final thing that we have to realize and understanding is the nature of anatta. The nature of anatta is the nature of not self or non-self, right? The Buddha says that there are things in your life that are out of your control. Not every time you're going to have everything according to your wishes. Okay, there are things that are out of our range of control. Once we understand this true nature of anatta or non-self, it is really easy to accept the truth in life. And it is very easy to not to worry about the things that we cannot control. So if you look at the life, if you look at the situations in your life, in these three marks of existence, the Buddha said that it is really easy to practice the patience. It is really easy to love people, to give your kindness to people, because we know that we are not going to last forever, and we know that they are not going to last forever. What they did was not going to last forever. What they said was not going to last forever. So we can let go of the anger and we can move on. So these are the few things and few realizations that will help us to practice the patience in your life. So keep this in your mind and be patient. Namo Buddhaya.
So for a lay person practicing in life, we all need to balance this. But how? Ask that wise question. What is it? How? How to be balanced? I would say it is all about what we give priority to. It's all about priority. Right? I will ask a question. Why are you here today? You had work. You had other things to do. Right? You had other responsibilities to do. But you made time for 3 hours to come here and just sit down and listen. Why? Because it was important. It was important to you. The person inside you taught you that, okay, this is important. Put it on the first place in the list. Today I'm participating to this. And that is why you came here. That is priority. But so many people complain. they complain to me sometimes. They come and like ask, it's very difficult to meditate. It's very difficult to maybe practice the spirituality. Why? It's all about giving priority to it. See, no matter what happened in life, we eat food, don't we? We eat. No matter what happened, how much busy was the day, we eat food. You know? No matter what happened, we eat that. We do that. Why? Because it is prioritized. Okay? No matter what happened during the day, what we do? We clean ourselves. Why? Because it is the priority. No matter what happened during the day, don't you hang out on social media? Isn't it? Yes. Why? Because it is the priority. So why can't we do maybe 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of spiritual practice during the day? No matter what happened, no matter how much busy the day was, it's all about what you give priority to. It's about how much value that you give to the spiritual life. Understand that giving the priority to spiritual life also essential for all of you.
One of the core teachings that we find in Buddhism is to understand the pain and suffering as a part of life, and also to see the suffering and the pain as it is. But this is easier said than done, okay? Because most of the time, when we go through painful feelings and painful situations in life, we used to worry. We used to become frustrated, and we fall down mentally. But the Buddha offers us a different way of thinking to see this pain and to see this suffering, to use that experience to add more meaning to our life. So today, let's talk about how can we move through painful situations in life according to Buddhism. The Buddha gives a wonderful simile for this. The Buddha says, suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, and then they would strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by two darts, two arrows. When the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he feels two feelings: bodily, physical feeling, and the mental feeling, or physical suffer and mental suffer. The reason why we worry in the face of this unavoidable suffering in our life is we expect a life without suffering. But life itself has the intrinsic nature and inherent nature of suffering and pain and unsatisfied nature. So what Buddha teaches us is to see it as a part of life. Do not try to forget it. Do not try to run away from it. See it as a part of your life that always persists throughout your life. And the Buddha says that when an ordinary person goes through these feelings, to escape from this pain, what he does is he seeks delight in sensual pleasures. He chases behind sensual pleasures to distract himself. So that is the normal reaction, isn't it? Normally, when someone goes through a painful feeling, when someone goes through a difficult time in his life, they chase behind sensual pleasure to distract their brains, distract their mind from that pain. For an example, when someone is struggling in their life, if someone has pain in his mind, sometimes some people use alcohol. Some people distract them with
with alcohol. Some people distract them with sexual misconduct. Some people distract themselves with consuming more and more social media. These days, it is happening more and more. Okay. For an example, if you feel any pain in your life, just check your behavior. People use more and more social media. Why? To distract themselves with that pain, from that pain. But Buddha does not say that chasing behind the sensual pleasure is completely wrong. What Buddha says is that chasing behind sensual pleasure does not solve your problem completely. Why is that? So the more we chase behind sensual pleasure, the more we suffer because of the unsatisfied nature. So that is why the Buddha said, chasing behind sensual pleasure does not solve your problem completely. Why it does not solve the problem completely? Because whenever we are being struck by a miserable feeling or a painful feeling in life, now we need something material, an external source to distract ourselves all the time. Now, this does not help us to focus on ourselves and find the true nature of this problem and solve it once and forever. Okay, so that is why the Buddha said, chasing behind sensual pleasure will not completely solve your problem. Instead of chasing behind the sensual pleasure to distract ourselves, the Buddha says that look at the pain as a part of life that is unavoidable. And the Buddha says that pain is an inevitable condition in life, but worrying is an option that we choose. Worrying is always optional. So the Buddha used a special term to these ups and downs in life. He called it 8 worldly conditions. The Buddha said that these 8 worldly conditions prevails in this world every time. The Buddha says, gain and loss, dispute and fame, blame and praise, and pleasure and pain. These 8 worldly conditions revolve around the world, and the world revolves around these 8 worldly conditions. So these 8 worldly conditions are like the 2 faces of the same coin. We cannot separate it. So the Buddha says that do not worry too much, more than needed, about these painful situations in life. Rather than worrying about it, we always have the choice to stay away from worrying, because pain is an inevitable condition, but worrying is an optional thing, is a choice that we make in our life. So keep this amazing sentence in your mind. Pain is inevitable, worrying is optional. Keep that in your mind and stay strong, stay safe. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome everyone to another video. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the threefold practices in Buddhism. Now, no matter how the way that you are approaching the Buddha's teachings, these are the 3 practices that you need to practice in Buddhism. Okay? So we are going to take a look at these things. Before understanding these 3 practices, about these 3 practices, we have to understand why we should practice these things. Okay? What is the goal and what is the ultimate goal of Buddha's teachings? Now, the ultimate goal of all the Buddhist teachings is to liberate your mind from unsatisfactoriness. Okay? Liberate your mind from all the sufferings in life. Okay? Because the Buddha said that the life is based on unsatisfactoriness. Okay? So once you have a deeper and a wiser understanding about your life, then you can liberate your mind from all the unsatisfactorinesses in your life. Okay? So Buddha realized that to achieve this state, to enlighten your mind and to liberate your mind, you need to make some conditions and you have to practice your mind. So that is why Buddha introduced us these 3 practices to practice in our practical life in order to enlighten our mind. So without any further ado, let's dive into these practices. So the first practice in Buddhism is called Sila. Now, I have discussed about Sila in an earlier video. You can watch it here. So basically, the Sila means the moral and ethical conduct, being disciplined from your body and from your words. Okay, so once you practice this Sila, you can be disciplined from your body and from your words. Now, Buddha understood that when we are living with people, the way we behave, right, the actions that we do from our body and the words that we speak will impact the lives of other people as well as us. Okay, it will impact the life of ourselves, the way we behave and way we speak, and also it will highly influence the others' lives too. And that is why Buddha said, purify your conduct. Do wholesome things from your body and from your words. So Sila helps you to practice the verbal and the physical conduct in a moral and a more ethical and wholesome way. Okay, so in Sila we have precepts. Basically, for lay people like you, you have 5 precepts that you can protect. Okay, the first one is abstaining from killing beings. The Buddha says that stay away from killing beings. In that way, you become disciplined from your body. Abstaining from stealing. Do not take others' possessions without their permissions, without the permissions of themselves, with the stealing mind. Okay, once you protect that, you be disciplined from your body. And Buddha said that stay away from sexual misconduct. When you abstain from sexual misconduct, you become disciplined from your body. And the Buddha said, stay away from lying. Be disciplined from your words. Do not break the trust of others from your words. And finally, Buddha says, stay away from intoxicating your body. Okay, do not use intoxicants and other drugs. It will lead to harmful situations and harmful consequences in your life. So basically, Buddha introduced us these 5 precepts to protect in your life. When you observe and when you protect these 5 precepts, you become disciplined from your body. Okay, so that is why Sila helps you to be disciplined, to live a disciplined life. Why we should live a disciplined life? We should live a disciplined life to stay away from regrets. Because when you look at these 5 precepts, if you engage in these things, if you kill animals, if you steal others' possessions, if you commit sexual misconduct, if you lie, and if you intoxicate yourself, what will happen? There will be a lot of regrets in your life. And also there will be things that you have to worry about. That is why Buddha says, stay away from these 5 things and you will live a regretless life. Okay, so that is the first practice. Moving on to the second practice, we have samadhi. Now, samadhi can be translated as concentration or mental peacefulness inside your mind. Now, remember, this samadhi is supported by the first practice that is called the Sila. The Buddha said, when you practice Sila or when you live a moral and ethical life, what will happen? You will have less regrets in your mind. You will have no regrets in your mind. Once you have no regrets in your mind, what will happen? It will lead to the mental happiness. Because most of the people, they worry about the things that they have done in the past. Okay? Unwholesome things that they have done in the past. But once you live according to the precepts, once you live a virtuous life, then you can be happy about yourself. And also, your mind will be in a good and a happy state. That is why this samadhi is supported by the Sila. Now, why we need samadhi? Now, we need samadhi to think clearly. Because you know that when your mind is busy, when your mind is scattered, and when it runs here and there, it is very difficult to think clearly. Now, Buddha considered that thinking clearly and thinking freely is a great benefit to understand the reality of your life. And that is why we need to practice samadhi. For practicing samadhi, Buddha introduced many meditations. So one type of meditation is called samatha meditation. some of the meditations helps you to condense your mind and find that peacefulness inside your mind. Okay, it includes loving kindness meditations, breathing meditations, mindfulness meditations. All those meditations will help you to achieve a peaceful and a calm life. Okay, so but remember this, to achieve a peaceful and calm life, we have to focus on living a virtuous life, living a disciplined life. Keep that in your mind. So let's move on to the third practice, and this is the final practice in Buddha's teachings, that is called wisdom, or panya in Buddhism. Now, so many people think that knowledge is wisdom. Always remember, knowledge is a part of wisdom, but it is not the wisdom. Now, Buddha explains that you must achieve wisdom from three means, from three types of wisdoms. The first type of wisdom is called Suttamaya Panya. Suttamaya Panya means the wisdom that is gained through learning. Okay, you can learn, you can read, and you can listen to sermons, right? That is called the knowledge. Of course, wisdom has a part of knowledge. And also the second type of wisdom is called Chintamaya Prajna. Chintamaya Prajna is the wisdom that is gained by wisely reflecting. Okay, the wisdom that is gained by wisely reflecting on what you have learned, the reality of your life. When Buddha teaches about the reality of the life, when Buddha teaches about the impermanence and the reality of all the things, you have to wisely reflect on it. Okay, you have to think upon it. And once you think and once you wisely reflect on it, you gain the wisdom. You gain a deeper understanding. Okay, that is called Chintamaya Prajna, the wisdom that is gained by wisely reflecting. And also in the third type of wisdom, this is the most important type of wisdom, that is called Bhavanamaya Prajna, the wisdom that is gained by practicing. Okay, now the wisdom that is gained by practicing is supported by all those two wisdoms, Chintamaya Prajna and Suttamaya Prajna, the wisdom that is gained by listening or learning, and also the wisdom that is gained by wisely reflecting. Now Buddha says, when you learn and when you think and when you wisely reflect on it, then you can apply it to your practical life by doing meditations, by doing it practically. Okay, many of the people believe that Bhavanamaya Prajna is only based on meditations. No, Bhavana does not mean only the meditation. It gives the meaning of development or practicing. Okay, so you have to look, how can I apply these Buddha's teachings? How can I practice these things in my practical life? Once you do it, your wisdom will be developed. That is how you practice the wisdom in Buddha's teachings. So basically, these are the three main practices in Buddhism. Sila gives you the ethical and wholesome bodily and verbal conduct. And Samadhi will help you to develop a concentrated and a calmer and a peaceful mind. And Prajna gives you a deeper and a wiser understanding about the reality and our existence and all the experiences that we go through in our life. Once you practice these three practices, you will be directed. Your life will be focused on liberation. Your mind will be well prepared for the liberation and to a deeper understanding about the life. So these are the three practices that we practice in Buddhism. Try to practice these things and try to apply it to your practical life. Wish you all happy and a peaceful life. Namo Buddhaya.
Buddha considered the gratitude and the gratefulness as the mother of all the good qualities. In Mahamangala Sutta, the Buddha says, having a grateful mind is a blessing for your life. Okay, so how can we practice this gratitude? And what is the meaning of gratitude? Now, the word that is given to gratitude, given for the gratitude in Buddhism is called katanyuta. Katanyuta means the ability to remember what one have done to you. That means the helps that have done to you. If you can remember the people and the helps that you have given, okay, people have done to you, then that is called the gratitude. So how can we practice this? Well, you can be grateful and you can be thankful for almost everything in your life. Let's say you take your food plate to your hand. You can practice gratitude in there. How? You can be grateful for the people who made that food. Maybe your wife, maybe your husband, maybe someone who helped you. Okay? So you can be grateful for them. You can say that, thank you. Okay, genuinely you can say that, thank you. I'm grateful for you. Okay? Because of you people, I live happily and I live in comfort in my life. In every morning, okay, in every morning, take a little time to practice this gratitude in your life. Okay, wake up in the morning and say that I am thankful for my life. Okay, I am thankful for the people who lived around me, who helped me, okay, who was there with me in my life in the hardest times. And also in the same time, we can be happy about the tough times and bad people in our life too. Okay, so many people don't think about this because we become grateful for the only for the good people and the good situations in our life. No, we can be grateful for the bad people and difficult situations in our life. How can we do that? Well, because of the bad people and because of the bad situations and tough situations in our life became so much interesting, right? Imagine if your life became all the things, like you got all the things you wanted, okay? And there were all the people who were good and nice to you, okay? You didn't face any tough situations in your life. There's nothing more interesting, nothing much interesting about your life. But because of the bad people and because of the tough situations and the bad days in our life became so much interesting, no? Because there's a story for us to tell. Okay, there is an interesting story for us to tell. That is why the more we face tough situations, our life becomes so much interesting. So we can be thankful for the bad people and say, like, thank you for giving me tough times. Thank you for giving me the ability to practice the patience and love and kindness and compassion for you because of you people. In that way, you can be, you see, if you think about it, you can be grateful for every situation and everything in your life. So every single day when you wake up in the morning, take a little moment to say thank you for everything and every person in your life. So keep that in your mind and practice this wonderful quality of gratitude. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. From today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you one of the most beautiful poems from the Buddha. Now, when it comes to poems, the Buddha had a great talent of uttering poems or uttering verses. We call them gathas in Buddhist texts. So there's a whole array of books that are dedicated only for the verses or the poems that was uttered by the Buddha. For an example, the Dhammapada only contains the verses that was uttered by the Buddha. Sutta Nipata, there's another book called Sutta Nipata, which contains only the verses. So when it comes to uttering poems, the Buddha had a great talent, and these poems are very rich with the direct teachings from the Buddha and very deep meanings about the life. So here's one poem from the Buddha that can inspire you and also that can give you a lot of teachings about the life. The Buddha says, "Let not a person revive the past or on the future build his hopes, for the past has been left behind and the future has not been reached. Instead, with insight, let him see each presently arisen state." Now, this explains about the mindfulness. This is the whole point of practicing the Buddhist way of mindfulness. Now, when it comes to mindfulness, the word that is given in Pali language for mindfulness is sati. Sati is not always a Buddhist word, or mindfulness is not always a Buddhist word, because before the Buddha also, there were people who practiced sati, but that sati serves a different purpose. Now, if you ask from a normal person who practices the mindfulness or who practices the mindfulness meditations, why do you practice mindfulness? You can answer like, okay, mindfulness helps me to relieve from the stress, right? It makes the things easier. And also it helps me to watch my anger and to control it. Now, it is true that all these purposes are served by the mindfulness, right? All these things are served by the mindfulness to control your anger, to control your emotions, to be more mindful, and also to relieve the stress from your life. It serves that purpose. But in Buddhist practice, the mindfulness serves a purpose that is beyond from these purposes. Okay, the Buddha says, instead, with insight, let him see each presently arising state. Now, this is the whole point of practicing the Buddhist way of mindfulness, which we call sammasati. It is to see the change. It is to see the impermanence nature of life. In the first, the Buddha says, let not a person revive the past. That means, if you understand what is past, the past is gone. It is over now, right? So the Buddha says, do not run back into the past or on the future build his hopes, right? Do not build hopes for the future. Why? The Buddha says, for the past has been left behind. Now, what is past is over now. It doesn't exist, right? And also, and the future has not been reached. Still, the future hasn't reached. So instead, what we have to do is, with insight, let him see each presently arising state. What we have to do is to contemplate, to focus our mind, to focus our awareness on this present state of mind. We only live in this present moment, right? We don't live in past. We don't live in future. We can't live in past or we can't live in future. We only have the only moment that we own in this life is this moment that is fleeting. So what Buddha says is to be more mindful about the experiences that happens in this present moment. Because if you think about the past, it is just an illusion of your mind, right? For an example, we can think about the experiences that happened in the past. We can regenerate that experience in our mind. But that experience is something that happens when we think about the past. That experience is something that happens in right now, but it is disguised as past. We think it is past. Who thinks it is past? We think it, right? But that very thought happens in this very moment. Okay, so how to practice the mindfulness is to be less judgmental or to be no judgment, to have no judgment about the experiences that happens in this present moment, and also to be more aware of it, right? Mindfulness is non-judgmental awareness. For an example, someone can think, okay, when you become mindful, you only keep your mind in the good place, in a good state. No, the Buddha says, saragang va chittang, saragang chittang ti bhajanati. That means when one has a lustful mind, he understands that lustful mind as it is, right? That means when he has anger in his mind, he understands the state of mind, that thought as anger. Now, the problem is we become so much judgmental about the experiences that we have. Either we try to react positively, either we try to respond positively or to react negatively, right? For an example, let's say we have an uncomfortable thought in our mind. For an example, like anger. What we do is we try to reject that thought, right? We try to reject and we try to push that thought out of our mind. The more we push, the more we create the anger. Okay, so in mindfulness, what we do is we don't judge, we don't label that thought, we just see it as it is. Now, when you do that, you start to not to react to that very thought. And once you start to not to react, once you stop your reactions, what happens? The angry thought is no longer an angry thought, because an angry thought becomes an angry thought when we start to react to it, right? It's something like this. Like you're seeing a traffic pass by, right? You're sitting beside the road and you're seeing a traffic pass by. You don't jump into the middle of the road and you don't try to stop the vehicles, or you don't try to chase behind the vehicles. What you do is you sit beside the road and you look at the vehicles and understand it as it is, right? So that you don't involve in them. You don't become judgmental about them, okay? And that is the practice of mindfulness. Whatever comes to your mind, you're mindful of it. The problem is why we become angry, why we become jealous, and why all these evil thoughts come to our mind is we are not mindful of it. Once you learn how to be mindful, you start to be less judgmental and less reactive to those thoughts, right? And also, you start to think before you act, right? Your mind becomes slower and slower so that you can catch the very thought when it arises. And that is the pinnacle of practicing the mindfulness. And also, then you understand that every thought has its own arising and it passes away, right? So every experience that we have has the nature of arising and passing away. Once you realize this nature, the arising nature and the passing away nature, that is what we call the impermanence. And that is called the true nature of life. In Pali, we call it anicca, the change. Now, the Buddha says, once you realize something is subjected to change, and once you realize that everything is subjected to change, everything is anicca, the next realization is if something is subjected to change, it is suffering, right? It is related to suffering. For an example, every suffering in our life, right? Every painful situation, every suffering that we have in our life is due to change, right? We think that we wish that things are not to change, but they change. We wish that certain experiences to not to change, but they changes. We expect that people to not to change, but they change. So every suffering in our life is due to change or anicca. So the Buddha says, yada niccang tan dukkha. What is subjected to change is suffering. And the next part is yan dukkhang tadanatta. If something is suffering, that should not be considered as self, I or mine or myself, right? So the Buddha says, if something is subjected to suffering, it should not be considered as self or myself. So that is the way to understand the concept of not self. So these three signs of this existence, these three signatas of existence, which is called the anicca, the impermanence, and dukkha, suffering, and anatta, the not self, is the three signata. These are the three signs of this existence. And the whole point of practicing the Buddhist way of mindfulness is to understand these three signatas, the reality of life. So that is why the Buddha says, when you practice mindfulness, when you contemplate and when you focus your mind to this present moment, when it is arising, you know it. When it passes away, you know it. You are mindful of it. And that is the way to understand the true nature of our life. And the next part of this verse is so beautiful. It is so inspiring. The Buddha says, today the effort must be made. Tomorrow death may come. Who knows? No bargain with mortality. That is one beautiful word. No bargain with mortality. Understand that we all are mortal people. We all are subjected to death, and we all are dying. And there is no bargain with it. when that incident comes to our life, we have to get ready to go. So that when you understand this, the living moment, this present moment is so valuable for you to practice this Dharma, for you to practice this spirituality, right? Once you understand that you are subjected to death, you value the value of life. And in the next part, the Buddha says, can keep him and his hordes away, but one who dwells thus ardently, relentlessly, by day and night, it is he, the peaceful sage has said, who has had a single excellent night. Once you understand the true nature of the existence, and once you are not running back to the past, and once you learn how to not to expect the future, and once you learn how to be in this present moment, and to understand the true nature of life, you can live an excellent night, or an excellent day, or an excellent life. So this is what Buddha meant from this beautiful poem. So the whole point of practicing the mindfulness in Buddhist practice is to understand the impermanence of life. So I think this little poem will help you to understand more about the Buddha's way of practicing mindfulness. So I have mentioned all the links and all the things that you need to read about this sutra and this poem in the descriptions below. So go check it out them, and also try to practice this mindfulness in your life. Try to add it to your daily life and enjoy a peaceful and a happier life. Namo Buddhaya. A lot of you have been asking from me for a long period of time this question, that I am new to Buddhism and I want to know more. Please recommend me some books to read. Well, today I'm going to be recommending you 5 books that you must read as a beginner to Buddhism. Now, I have categorized these 5 books into 3 groups. The first group is the books that will give you a good understanding about the Buddha's life story. The second group is the books that will give you a good understanding about the core and fundamental Buddhist principles. And the third one is the books that will give you a good understanding about how to practice Buddhism in our daily life. It's something like a practical guide in your daily life. So without any further ado, let's dive into these books. First off, we have The Buddha and His Teachings by Narada Mahathera. Now, if you are interested in learning the Buddha's life story, this is one of the best books that you can read. The first half of this book is entirely dedicated in explaining about the Buddha's life story and about the key moments of the Buddha's life story. Now, having a good understanding about the life of the Buddha is very important when you learn Buddhism, because there are some things, and it is something like you're having a good foundation to your knowledge. So in this book, in the first half, you can learn the key moments of the Buddha's life story. And the second half is entirely dedicated in explaining about the main Buddhist concepts like karma and rebirth and enlightenment and etc. So as a beginner, you should read this book, and this is one of the best books that you can start reading as a beginner to Buddhism. Next up, we have one of my personal favorite books, and that is Buddha, the Marvelous Sage by my teacher, Venerable Kiribati Jnanananda Mahathera. He was the monk who took me under his wings and taught me Dhamma and gave me this precious gift of Dhamma. Now, this book is very special because it flows like a river. Now, when you read this book, it is also about the Buddha's life story and also some of the teachings of the Buddha. It flows like a river. It is very difficult to put down this book, right? If you are fascinated and if you like to learn more about Buddha's life story, this is one of the best books that you can read. And also it has some explanations about the Buddha's early lives, how the Buddha practiced and how the Buddha practiced some good qualities to attain the Buddhahood. So if you're interested in learning about the Buddha's life story in detail, this is one of the best books that you can read, Buddha, the Marvelous Sage. As the third book, I have one of the most famous books that have ever written by an author about Buddhism, and that is none other than what the Buddha taught by Venerable Valpola Rahula Mahathera. Now, if you're interested in learning about the core Buddhism and main Buddhist fundamentals, right, and Buddhist concepts, this is the best book that you can read and you have to read. In this book, it explains about Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, enlightenment, and some concepts like anatta. And there are so many profound and very clear explanations about Buddhist concepts in this book. So this book falls under the category of the books that will give you a good understanding about the core Buddhism and Buddhist principles. Moving on to the fourth book, I have Mindfulness in Plain English by Bhante Gunaratana. I don't want to explain much about this book because the title tells everything. Mindfulness in Plain English. Now, if you're interested in learning about the mindfulness and Buddhist way of mindfulness, how to practice the mindfulness in your daily life, this is the best books, and this is one of the best books that you can read. It is in simple English that everyone can understand. Now, I have seen all over the Bhante Gunaratana's works that every book that he writes is very simple to understand, and it is very applicable for our life. So you have a good understanding about the mindfulness and the meditation. So if you are interested in learning about the mindfulness and how to practice and how to apply the mindfulness to my life, this is the best book that you can read, Mindfulness in Plain English. As the fifth book and the final book, I have the most famous Buddhist book in the entire world, and that is none other than Dhammapada. Now, I have done an entire video about Dhammapada. If you want to watch it, you can watch it right here. Now, Dhammapada is a set of verses that was spoken by the Buddha himself. Now, these are the pure and the direct words from the Buddha himself. So, if you want to learn about the Buddha's a way of life and Buddhist weave, this is one of the best books that you can read. And also, this is known as the handbook of Buddhists. Now, I have heard that a lot of our Hindu friends say that when you have a trouble in life and you are going through a tough time in life, take Bhagavad Gita and read, and you will find some answers. I would recommend for every one of you, read Dhammapada too, right? If you turn into a random page, you will find something that is very worthy and very valuable in this book, right? Now, this is very easy to read because it has the poem-like structure, okay? It has very small poem-like structures, verses, so it is very easy to read and it is very easy to understand. There are a lot of translations of Dhammapada, so I would recommend the translation that is done by Venerable Acharya Buddharakkhita, also known as Bhadabhante Ji. His translation is one of the best translations that you can find. So if you can find this book, then please read it and learn from it. Dhammapada is one of the major books that you have to read as a beginner to Buddhism. So here we are. These are the 5 books that you must read if you are new to Buddhism and if you want to know more about Buddhism. So all the links to each and every book I have mentioned down in the description box, and some of them have free PDFs, so you can read and you have to learn Buddhism like that. I want to say that you don't want to be a Buddhist to just read these books. Everyone can read and everyone can learn from Buddhism because Buddhism is open to everyone. You can be a Muslim, you can be a Christian person, you can be a Hindu person, no matter what religion you are from, no matter what nationality you have, you can learn Buddhism, and Buddhism is open to everyone. So learn Buddhism and make your life happy. Namo Buddhaya.